On April 28, 1955, a 14-year-old girl named Stephanie Bryan took her usual shortcut home from school. It was a path she walked every day, but on this day, she never arrived. The alarm was raised, and a massive search began, but the only trace of the young girl was a single school textbook found lying in a field. For months, there were no leads, no suspects, and no answers. Stephanie had simply vanished. Then on a hot July day, nearly 3 months later, the case took a bizarre turn. A woman named Burton Abbott called the police. She had been rummaging in the basement of her home in Alameda, California, when she stumbled upon a discovery that made her blood run cold. Hidden away was a purse containing an identification card. It belonged to Stephanie Bryan. Police rushed to the Abbott home. A thorough search of the basement revealed more of Stephanie's belongings: school books, a pair of glasses, and a brassiere. And the family, which included Georgia, her husband Burton Abbott, and his mother Elsie, claimed to have no idea how the items got there. In fact, it turned out Elsie had found the purse even earlier but hadn't connected it to the missing girl. Burton Abbott, a 27-year-old accounting student at the University of California, Berkeley, told investigators he had an alibi. On the day Stephanie disappeared, he said he was on his way to the family's remote cabin, nearly 300 miles away in the Trinity Mountains. He claimed he was miles away from the crime scene, but his statement only made police more suspicious. If he wasn't involved, how did Stephanie's things end up in his basement? Investigators decided to search the area around the Abbott's mountain cabin. It didn't take them long to find what they were looking for. In a shallow, hastily dug grave just a few hundred feet from the cabin, they uncovered the badly decomposed body of Stephanie Bryan. She had been bludgeoned to death. Burton Abbott was immediately arrested and charged with kidnapping and murder. The stage was set for one of the most sensational trials in California's history. The trial began in November 1955, and the prosecution painted a damning picture of Burton Abbott. Their theory was that he was a sexual deviant who had abducted Stephanie, attempted to assault her, and then killed her when she fought back. The problem for the prosecution, however, was that they had no direct evidence. Everything they presented was circumstantial. There were no witnesses who saw Abbott with Stephanie, no confession. The pathologist who examined Stephanie's remains testified that her body was too decomposed to determine if a sexual assault had even occurred. Abbott's fingerprints weren't on any of the items found in the basement. So, the prosecution relied on emotion and insinuation. They showed the jury Stephanie's rotting clothes. They waved her torn brassiere in the air, implying a violent struggle they couldn't prove. The key physical evidence linking Abbott to the crime was forensic. Hairs and fibers found in Abbott's car were said to match samples taken from Stephanie's body and clothing. It was a microscopic link, but in the absence of anything else, it was powerful. Abbott himself took the stand for 4 days. He was calm, poised, and spoke in a soft voice, steadfastly denying any involvement. He insisted the whole thing was a monstrous frame-up. His defense suggested that the items could have been planted in the basement. They pointed out that just a month after Stephanie's disappearance, the Abbott's basement had been used as a public polling place, meaning dozens of strangers had access to it. The jury deliberated for 7 long days. The lack of direct evidence weighed heavily on them. But in the end, the circumstantial case fueled by the prosecution's emotional appeals was enough. They returned a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced Burton Abbott to death in the gas chamber at San Quentin Prison. Abbott's conviction automatically triggered an appeal to the Supreme Court of California. His lawyers fought tirelessly, but the court upheld the verdict, detailing the web of circumstantial evidence they believed was strong enough to prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. For over a year, Abbott sat on death row as his legal team exhausted every avenue to save his life. His execution was scheduled for 11:00 a.m. on March 15, 1957. The final hours of Burton Abbott's life were a frantic, chaotic race against the clock that exposed deep flaws in the legal system. That morning, his attorney, George T. Davis, was in a desperate hurry. At 8:50 a.m., he was before the U.S. Court of Appeals, arguing that Abbott hadn't received due process. His appeal was denied. His next hope was the governor of California, Goodwin J. Knight. But there was a problem. The governor was at sea, aboard the aircraft carrier USS Hancock, and couldn't be reached by a standard telephone. In a move of sheer desperation, Davis arranged for a TV station to broadcast a plea directly to the governor, begging him to turn on his television. The message got through. At 9:02 a.m., Governor Knight called Davis via radio telephone and granted a 1-hour stay of execution. With the clock ticking, Davis rushed a new petition to the California Supreme Court. At 10:42 a.m., just 18 minutes before the scheduled execution, it was denied. He then tried the federal district court. At 10:50 a.m., they too refused to intervene. Only 10 minutes remained. Davis raced back to the clerk's office and frantically tried to call the governor again. He claimed he got a busy signal, even though the governor later insisted the lines were open. At 11:12 a.m., just 3 minutes before Abbott was due to be escorted to the chamber, Davis finally got through to Governor Knight. As Davis was on the phone, pleading that he had a new legal point, Burton Abbott was being led into the gas chamber. He remained calm, shaking hands with the warden and quietly saying, "Thank you," when the warden wished him well. He was strapped into the metal chair. The heavy steel door was sealed shut. On the aircraft carrier, Governor Knight, now convinced by Davis's plea, agreed to a second stay. He instructed his secretary to call the prison warden on a direct line. The secretary's frantic exchange with the warden was overheard by the governor. "Has the execution started?" the secretary asked. The warden's voice came back, grave and final. "Yes, sir, it has." "Can you stop it?" "No, sir, it's too late." At 11:18 a.m., as Governor Knight hung up the phone in disbelief, the executioner pulled the lever. 16 cyanide pellets dropped into a vat of sulfuric acid beneath Abbott's chair. The invisible, lethal gas began to rise. Burton Abbott stared straight ahead. His head slowly tilted back, and then he died. The execution was complete. But a phone call that could have stopped it had come just moments too late. The tragic timing immediately sparked outrage and renewed a fierce debate. Had an innocent man been executed? The case exposed a glaring loophole. Federal law gave Abbott's lawyers 90 days to file a final appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court after the state court denied a rehearing. But the state of California had scheduled his execution well before that 90-day period was over. This meant Burton Abbott was executed while the possibility still existed, however slim, that he could have won a new trial. To this day, the case of Burton Abbott remains a chilling story. Was he a cunning killer who almost got away with it, or the victim of a tragic miscarriage of justice, convicted on circumstantial evidence and executed due to a legal system's catastrophic failure to communicate? We may never know for sure, but his story serves as a powerful and unsettling reminder of the stakes involved when life and death hang in the balance. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into fascinating historical cases. We'll see you next time.